Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Paradigm Shifts podcast with your host, Keisha Kruger. I'm an organization development practitioner and executive coach, working with leaders to create positive changes in the workplace using behavioral science. My personal mission? Share science-based tools and leadership insights from the field that you can use in the workplace and beyond. Considering we spend about 3/4 of our lifetime at work, there is incredible science and organizational psychology that can be used to rethink the way we work, lead, and ultimately live. Join me as I speak with thought leaders and business leaders in practice, unpacking lightbulb moments for paradigm shifts. Hello, everyone. On this week's episode, we are sitting down with Chris Gere as he shares his story of what it's like to transition from a long career as an individual contributor to a manager. And Chris is a husband, father, software salesperson, host of the Triumph Over Trauma show, recording artist, speaker, mental health advocate, and a survivor of depression and blood clots. Chris has 17 plus years of professional experience spanning various industries. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Do yourself a favor, click it right now. We've got some incredible guests coming up that you don't want to miss. See you soon. Hi, Chris. How are you? Amazing. I am looking forward to chatting with you today about this journey of going from an individual contributor to a manager. Thank you for being with me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Big fan of your show, and happy to be here.
Yeah. And I appreciate that comment. When someone's going from an individual contributor, which is someone who's responsible for performing their own work, right? They are not necessarily focused on anyone else's, to a manager where then they are making sure everyone else is taken care of. That can be a difficult transition for a lot of people, especially if they don't have the right resources, support systems within an organization. And you've shared with me that you've once experienced that transition going from an individual contributor to a manager before. And I want to know, what story can you share with me about that transition in your journey?
Yeah, more than happy to. This was a really significant part of my professional career. So I worked as an individual contributor for most of my career. So graduated college around, it was January of 2006, and worked in various roles. Always progressing, always achieving and getting good marks for how I did. And I never really saw that. I or thought that I wanted to be a leader in a formal position of leadership. And a big driver of that, there were two things. One was probably a lack of confidence that I had the ability. I thought that I needed to be the expert, right? Have expert power, as they call it, right? I needed to know everything. And working in a highly technical field, which I was, and I was more of a people person than a technical person. Like, I knew enough. So, I've kind of had that bit of imposter syndrome. Like, I can't do that. I don't know all the widget stuff. And I don't know enough about it. And also I had one leader I worked for early in my career who really I could see that it was wearing him out. He was just on all the time and talked about drinking alcohol and just like to kind of cope. And he was always on. And it really, those two things I think stopped me from really ever wanting to be a leader. I was like, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to sacrifice my family and what's important to me, my values and my sons and the time with my wife and, for work. So went through this, many years of just continue to progress in individual contributor roles with no real desires to be a leader. And then I guess it was around 2017. So I guess we're maybe 13 years in. Something triggered this desire to really want to get into leadership. And honestly, I think if I look back, I think it really might have been a little bit of like kind of keeping up the Joneses. Like I saw some people that were progressing. I'm like, if they can do this, I can do this. Like, I think it was almost like I see people who are doing this that I know, if they are able to do it, I can pull this off. So I think it almost like it was a little bit of like, okay, you can definitely do it. So I think it was overcoming some of that, seeing other people's success kind of gave me like a boost. But I still wasn't sure about the work-life thing going into it. So around that time frame, I had a really good boss, and I told him, I said, listen, I want to get into leadership. I basically raised my hand in our performance reviews and started telling him. He was very supportive. And so he started saying, okay, well, we want to put you in a position to be to be the obvious choice when the time comes. We don't have anything now, but for when the day comes, we want to make sure that you're ready. Like, you can't wait till then. You need to be ready. Get ready now. It's almost like you got to do all the training in the off season. So when game time comes, you're ready to perform. So he was really good. So I took like a new hire, a new leader kind of exploration training. This was at Duke Energy here in Charlotte at the time. They had a great program for kind of like for you to discern, if you want to be a leader,
Oh,
as
wow.
well as I
Okay.
started taking on some different assignments in my current role, kind of more serving as like as a leader for a small team. So those things, kind of started me on the path. And before you know it, just like divine intervention, and a role opened up. Someone was in a role and they decided it wasn't for them. And it was in kind of my organization. And like I applied for it, went through the process, and, it wasn't a sure thing, but it was selected for my first, job as a manager.
Wow.
So I was a manager of a network architecture and engineering team. So highly technical, super smart people
For
who
sure.
design and implement like all the computer systems that, run our internet for our internal network for our company. So,
Mhm.
architects and engineers, really, really smart people that knew a whole lot more about technology than I did. Um,
Mm.
and it was busy. It was as a new leader, it was a large team. It was my span of control was probably around 20 to 23 people between
Wow.
employees and contractors across the United States. So I think like maybe four to five different locations. So it was a lot to take on as a new leader, right? New person, different locations. So it was a lot to take on. So that was, and it was just, right in, drink from the fire hose right off the bat. So that was, that was the start. As far as, shared a little bit of how I got into it. There's a lot that I learned along the way. There's a whole lot that I learned along the way, and it was a huge growth opportunity, and I'm very thankful for it. So let me pause there because I'm sure you might have some questions you might want to ask.
I do. Like, I thank you so much for sharing that story. And I know that there's so many components of that that is going to be really relatable to individuals who are either seeking transition or maybe kind of want some validation for was their transition similar to someone else's, or maybe I heard you say the imposter syndrome. And I want to go back to that because I think that's such a common thing, especially if you've never been in a manager role before during a transition from an individual contributor to a manager. And so how did you overcome imposter syndrome in that situation?
Yeah, I think the biggest trigger for me was just seeing other people. Like it's almost like I saw like it's like if you're not sure if you're a good runner, but then you see all of your friends are like who are just like you suddenly start running really well. Like I can run, I know how to. I can like it's not that difficult. Just get out and move your feet. So I saw other people doing it. I think that was the beginning of it, of seeing like I can do it. Like that gave me confidence.
Mm,
And then I think taking on some of those assignments helped me too. I think taking on some assignments like where I was in like a matrix type organization, informal leader, seeing that I could inspire people, seeing that I could manage and organize work, seeing that I could, hold people accountable in the way that I could. I think taking on some of those steps in a role before I was officially a leader helped give me confidence. Like it made me think I can do this. And
mm,
then the formal training was just good, like good educational stuff to say, okay, these are things to think about. So I think a combination of all those things and then actually doing the job, I felt qualified. I felt like I could do it. I mean, it was hard. Don't get me wrong. The job was hard, but I felt like I was capable. I felt like I had what I needed, to do the job. Like, I had everything that I needed. Like I had the skills, had the abilities. I think all those things, mostly I think taking action, I think helped me the
mm.
most. By doing things, I learned like you are capable. You can do this. Like just like anyone else. No one else there's nothing really special about them or you, but we can all do this if you just try.
Yeah, and so, like, taking action helped you, I imagine, like, build confidence over time, because confidence is a real important factor to imposter syndrome, right? Because the whole the whole thing of imposter syndrome is that a person doesn't feel confident, they don't feel competent, regardless of what they achieve, and they can be superstars, technical experts, but they just maybe don't they feel maybe inadequate or a fraud, right? Like, I'm gonna be
Hmm.
found out, and so it sounds to me like you had not only good role models who are kind of showing you the way, good support systems, but also a really solid leadership development program at the company. Can we talk a little bit about that? What did you learn in that program that helped you become a manager?
Let me double click on the fraud. You said the word fraud, and that I have to one more point on that one, and that was
Yeah,
the
double
interesting thing
click.
about that. Yeah, yeah, double click on that because I was at work in technology, so that's one of the this like the office buzzwords and bingo. Like let's revisit this, or, don't have enough bandwidth. Like that's like the drinking game. So
Love it.
the interesting thing, my whole career, this is really interesting. My whole career, I felt like a fraud. Like I felt like I was doing this job and I always did well. I got good reviews, but I always felt like a fish out of water. Like I'm doing this technical job, but I'm not really a technical person. Like I knew enough about it, but it wasn't really my heart. There was like an identity crisis. Interesting thing is when I finally got in this role of leadership, like that was the first time I probably didn't feel imposter syndrome. I think because
Wow.
I was not expected to be the like I had a team of people. Like if you have a technical problem, that's not what I do, right? My role is to help inspire, lead, right? Make sure we complete the assignments as a team, right? So more of people leadership than technical leadership. That was so it was interesting. So that role was the first time I did not really feel that. As far as the program, it wasn't a huge part of like what helped me become a better leader, but I think it was called Uplift. And it was for individual contributors who are thinking about discerning if leadership was for them. And so that was really helpful. It kind of walk you through, this is the types of things to expect, kind of like probably a canned training they got from someone else, with some little tweak, change the name, change a couple things. But it was good to kind of give you a feel for it at a general level. And then
Was
there
it
was
online training
it was all,
or
yep,
was it?
this was all online. I think they used to do it in person, but then I think they changed it online. And then there was a separate, I forgot what the name of the training was. There was a new leader training as well. I forgot what that one was called. But they also offered web-based, and that was also helpful. Like I wouldn't say it was like, neither of them significantly changed anything I did.
Right.
But one that I really enjoyed, that I got the most out of, and this was a different course altogether, it was called situational leadership. And there's stuff, if you look it up, there's SLX, there's stuff about it. I really enjoyed that because the biggest thing that I learned from that was you have to meet people where they are. So just because someone is tenured, just because someone is experienced, like, someone could be there for 30 years, that's great. But they may have zero experience with the task. So, it kind of helps you understand there's a whole matrix, right? There's a nice corporate model, kind of like meeting people where they are. They may be, they may need more support, like helping them, or they just may need more just kind of autonomy, or like maybe just, check in from time to time. Like it's all depends on the situation. So it's more of task driven, more of, you lead based on the task, not based on the person. The person may be very experienced. They may have never done this task before, where they may need a little bit more. So I really enjoyed that. I'd say that was the biggest, from a training perspective, from a corporate training perspective, the best thing that I experienced.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like it works, really well in situations that you need to be adaptable for. And I think that's a really good model for everyone to check out. Now, I wanted to transition and talk to you a little bit about what challenges you might have experienced during this transition. Not prior, but like once you got locked in and settled into the role, what are the biggest challenges that you experienced?
And there were tons of them. But I'd say the two biggest, the first one was just email hell, I'll just call it. I already hate email. I don't like it. I mean, it's a necessary thing. Like, it's a great communication tool, but I think it's just in a large environment, just too much. When you're getting, I don't know, 80 some, 100 some emails a day, it's a lot. It adds up fast. So, I already was, not a big fan of it. And I've read the different systems to use, David Allen's Getting Things Done and other like prioritization techniques. And so that was really hard. Just suddenly, when you have not just your work, but now you have 20 plus some people, plus your leadership layers up the organization, plus all of, the people you work with, your team, all of their like customers or stakeholders, plus who knows the heck what else, right? HR stuff. You've got just all this noise coming in. And I really wanted to like have it under control, right? And really like have control on the situation, like, and have like, I was a big fan of like inbox zero. Like, I'm a big fan of like, I don't like anything in my inbox. I want either in like a folder that says like, I'm going to take action, or I've deleted it, or I've archived it. That was really hard to do. Like it was overwhelming the heck out of me. But what helped me, and I wasn't great at it. Some people are much better. And I learned a few things in that journey. So one was, because I asked some of my peers and other people in the organization, I said, how do you, I said, when I was just got started, I was overwhelmed. I was like, how do you guys manage this?
Right.
And I remember I was at a meeting and two ladies higher than, up in the organization. They said, you know what? One of them told me, she said, I can't keep up with all of it. She's like, what I've learned is if it's bad enough, people are going to find me. Like they're going to raise it up. I'm going to keep hearing about it. They're going to escalate and escalate. Like she, like basically almost like said, I'm not even going to try to keep up with all of it. The important
Oh,
things are
wow.
going to come to the surface is what she said. So it's almost like in some ways, like choosing to kind of like not go crazy with it.
Giving herself grace, right? Like giving yourself
Yes.
some,
Grace. Ooh,
yeah,
good word.
compassion.
It's hard. And it's hard when you want it under control, but you have to kind of learn to let go. Like in my case, and I bet a lot of people deal with that. There's a book called The Tyranny of Email,
Oof.
which is, and I think those words go together very well. So email was a big thing. And then another thing that helped me was I found batching to be helpful. So for me, trying to manage the email during the work day was really difficult because I had so many meetings that I'm jumping meeting to meeting to meeting. Then I'm processing things between that. And just the way my brain works to focus on it was really hard for me. So I found my best time was to sometimes I would, it doesn't sound great from a work-life balance, but I'd come in on the weekend and I just go in by myself where no one's expecting anything of me on a Saturday. And I would go in and I would take my whiteboard in my room and I would write the numbers. Literally, I would count down from 100 down to 0. I'd write 100, 99, 98, 97 down to 0. And my goal would be to cross off all of those numbers before I left that day. And that was email. This was strictly just email management. So every time I'd get through like 10 of them, I'd cross them off, boom, 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 then do another batch. And that's how to work through it. And that's what gave me, I got the little dopamine hits of every time you cross them off, like, okay, I feel good. I feel momentum. But that helped me kind of manage it a little better. I didn't do it every weekend, but I would do that sometimes as a way to kind of like, crisis management for email. So
I
that
know.
was,
I love that. I've heard of people batching, but I've also heard people time blocking as well in their
yes.
calendars. Well, they'll block maybe, the same time every day. It'll just be time set aside where it shows that they're busy. Do not try to contact, and they just block it off, and that's like their focus. Get through the emails.
Yeah, I think that's a good, and I know, especially as I've met different business owners, they've talked about having certain days for certain
Yeah.
tasks is really important. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
blocking off is a good thing because you can be like, otherwise you feel like you're doing it all the time because you can be constantly just like, it's almost like you're in a boat, right? And there's a leak and you're constantly just taking the bucket and you're emptying it. It's like, you could do that all day long. Like, and there's a hole. So the second thing that I learned, and this was a big one. And I think a lot of people can relate to this because, right, leadership organizations are made up of people. And people have different personalities and different ways of working and different ways they're wired and different things that motivate them, different interests, different ways of communicating. So what was big for me, I'm coming in as a highly people person, a very big people. I'm a relationships guy. I'm an extrovert. I love people. I can talk to you all day long and ask about your family and this thing. So I'm a social like butterfly, right? And I loved that part of the job. My favorite part of being a leader was one-on-ones, getting to know people, how they're doing, what, some people call it chit chat, but it's because I really care about people. I care about people first. And then also ask them, like, what do you need? Like, how can I help you get better? What do you need from me? What challenges are you having? So that part I loved, right? But I was in a situation where my direct manager was more of a, tactical, focus on the results driven, complete opposite, very, very good at what he does, accomplishing, getting things done, and not a relationships person. So you've got very different styles and ways of working, right? So I'm craving and looking for kind of building this relationship with my leader and with many people in the organization, and my behaviors, are showing up that way. I'm meeting all kinds of people and learning and growing, and, my leader's expecting different things from me. Like, hey, just keep your head down, get this stuff done. Don't really want to hear about it. Like, finish it. Just finish stuff and don't need to talk about much. Just keep getting like, not really relationships at all. So very polar opposites as far as, kind of working styles and what we're interested in. So that was tricky because I was looking for kind of acknowledgement and reinforcement for these things that I was doing. And meanwhile, my boss is looking for very different things from me. So it's like completely different tracks. And there was some, there's some moments, even I remember in a meeting, like something like got not, some sarcasm from my boss not going over very well. We had some things that different styles, different ways of working.
Right.
So that was hard. That was hard the whole time. I'm gonna say it didn't really get a whole lot better. And I'm not going to say anyone's to blame. Like it's just differences, right?
Yeah.
It's just differences. And I'd say the biggest thing that I learned in that I would encourage people to do is to really, and I got better at doing it. I wasn't great at it, but make sure you're, very clear about, understanding your boss. And I started doing this, understand what their expectations are right out the gate. Like, what are these things you're looking for me to have completed like this week or this month, or what are these key priorities, things to work on? And we did get into, we did grow into that where it got better. So I wasn't completely in a whole different country, like we're at least in the same world. I still have my tendencies, but I think that helped, like to talk about those things. Understand like what are the types of things you want me to focus on. And I think that helped some, but it was a struggle. So that was a big struggle, and it was a big learning opportunity.
Thank you so much. So I'm hearing that you had the two biggest challenges you had in that transition was the email overwhelm and the personality clashes with your manager, just different work styles. So what then came easy or natural for you?
Ooh, can I list one more challenge? Because one more came to mind.
Yeah, please. What's another one?
I'm like those one of those TV commercials, and there's more. There's always one more. There's always one more. There's something about when you echo it back to me. I've always got one more, Keisha. I don't know.
Oh, keep going.
Sorry. The last one was similar to email. I learned when you're in middle management, I've heard people describe as like, it is the toughest job. When I hear about people who've, rose to higher levels of leadership, they always talk about that first or second leadership role was the freaking hardest. So I've heard many people describe that to me in that way. So a big challenge in that role was you're huge, like you're like a big information conduit, right? You got information coming from the people that report to you. You got information coming from people above you. You're in the middle trying to figure out you can't share, like it's a lot to share with lots of people all the time. So I learned that I needed to streamline my information collection from my team and how to summarize what was going on. So I knew it was important, so I could help with problems and report successes, so I could then also help them as well as relay that to other teams. So what I ended up doing was creating this thing called, and that no one likes weekly reports. They suck. No one likes that stuff. But I try to make it as simple as possible, right? Because I needed it in my role. Like I needed it because with 20 some people, there's just too much. There's too much going on. So I came up with this thing called the weekly P3. And it was like, and it was based on some things I've seen other companies do in different ways. And I think it was like, progress, like what are you working on? Problems. So what do you need help with? And for the third one, gosh, problems, progress, maybe priorities. Like this is what I'm going to work on. This is what I'm going to work on. This is what I've accomplished, and these are the problems. And I asked for my team to put those like on a OneNote in a shared area, and so and not send it to me. Just put it in this one place where I could see it and where everyone could see it, so we all knew what was going on. Can help them help each other too, on a weekly basis. And there were some grumbles and groans, and because I came in as a real social kind of like, people's, the people's champion. And I hit him with this P3, like, where the hell did this come from? Some were like, where, like, I wasn't expecting that. But it's like, listen, guys, I just need this. Like, I need the information. So, but that really helped me understand what was going on. And as well as what are the, and I asked them for them to keep it simple. Just give me 2 to 3 things max per section, because I can't have a novel, right? Give me a couple key things in those areas on a weekly basis. And then if you need me to engage, right, let me know. And then I have in a rolling report you can look back on. And so that was a huge lesson of how to collect and evaluate, summarize, that helped me in a lot of ways. That was the last thing. But you asked me, the next question was about what came easy, right?
Yeah.
So people. Simon Sinek, renowned, as you all know, like, leadership guru. he talks about that, you're not in charge of your people. Leaders aren't in charge of, but they're there to basically, they're something like they're basically almost like they're responsible for the charge of their people. I'm slaughtering it, but basically, essentially saying like almost like you're not like cracking a whip, right? You're there to take care of them and basically to support them, help them, right, in what they need. Yeah, there's times you need to hold people accountable, of course, but you're there to help them. So I think he's really big on servant type leadership, which I was a fan of.
Absolutely. And I'll just tie that in to what you had said before about, the P3, right? So I imagine that that's a great way for you to collect information upwards from your direct reports, but also a good way to do kind of like an environmental scan to identify where you need to provide downward communication based off of the things that you were receiving from above. And what's so important about providing information downwards to your teams is this visibility and transparency into what's going on in the company that provides security and stability. And when it comes to change that's happening in organizations, people need to know why. And Simon Sinek was so good on starting with why, right? And I think that will tie in really well to what you were talking about with your ability to, what comes natural for you is leading people. And so it sounds like you were already good at that and you were just naturally doing that and tying it all together.
Yeah, they're dialing in. Yeah, like the start with why he's really big on, and that was a huge thing. And, listening to people, caring, genuinely caring. I'm like a hippie, right? I just love everyone, right? So being around people, regular basis, kind of knowing what they need, kind of helping them how I can. That part came very natural. Like relationships came natural to me. That part was very natural. This is who I am. It's how I'm wired. It's one of the things in like my personality profile. That's who I am. So. But the why part was really important, right? He talks about that, and I had a huge learning. I learned a ton from that, like, by, getting burned by the fire. And what I mean by that is, I intentionally took time, I learned this from my father-in-law. He was a career Army officer. Then he was in education, and he's a huge leadership expert. I admire him. I've learned a lot from him. And he he kind of, suggested I take, basically take time, 30 to 90 days to kind of, take situational awareness, understand the environment before you make any change, and that does a lot of things, provide stability, security, helps people kind of understand as you're getting, and then, so I did that. I took maybe 60 days before I, unless there was something super, really, really critical, like I was just going to leave status quo. And then I was like, okay, I started then making some changes to some things that I saw that need to be done, that I thought need to be done differently. And for the most part, I would actually include my team and let them be a part of it.
Oh, wow, that's
really
important.
Have them weigh in, maybe more than I needed to. Yeah, I think they did appreciate it.
Yeah, you're not going to get buy-in for any change if you're not getting input from the people who are most impacted by the change.
No, and it's tough to navigate that because you've got a bunch of people and inevitably not going to agree on everything.
Yeah.
But one of the things that was a big learning thing for me was, some of these changes, I'm also kind of with email. I told you I hate email. So I'm really as brief as I love voice to text because I don't have to, I'm like I'm a geriatric millennial. I hate freaking like texting stuff out. I mean, I love the convenience, but I hate texting. I love voice. I'm all about voice communication. So, I would do very brief, like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Like we're doing this and, and there were times when I did not share why. I just said quickly, boom, we're doing this. And that was it. And one of my highest performers on the team, very, very smart individual, he came to me at one point, it was just like, I don't we need to know why the heck are we doing this thing? Like, why are we doing that? That really hit me, blindsided me. And it was a huge learning opportunity for me because I'm a very quick decision maker by nature. I'll quickly make a decision. I like that kind of Google approach of we want more at bats per unit of time because we learn. So I'm quick to make decisions because I know I'll learn and even, and then I'll grow from it. But when you've got a team, this new team that's looking for you for direction and safety and security, if you're quickly going left and right and diving and jumping and, doing all kinds of stuff, they're not sure what the hell is going on. So what worked for me as an individual, right, was not a strength for me as a leader. And I learned that. So by nature, I'm a very spontaneous, quick to decide and go. And what teams need, they need someone who's they need someone, they say really the best leaders are really boring.
Yeah.
They're predictable. They have routines. They have kind of like cycles, like, what's coming, what's coming. And honestly, that's not actually who I am. So
Mm.
that was a good learning opportunity that I can't just pivot on a dime when you've got a bunch of people who are counting on you, right? You need to set some context. You need to say why. You need to be a little slower. You have to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was a huge learning
Yeah.
opportunity.
I want to say kudos to you, because one of the key indicators of knowing as if you're a manager that's creating a psychologically safe space for your team, which means that they feel they can come to you about things, they can express their opinions without fear of consequence. One of the key indicators is that you are receiving feedback from your team,
Uh,
especially if something isn't working for them. And it takes courage for a direct report to say that to their manager, like, hey, I need to know why, or I would like to know more, or please provide us more context. It does take a lot of courage. So for them to be able to do that says a lot about you as a manager. So thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to point that out.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think that's a reflection of the part that came easy. The part that came easy was the people.
Mhm.
Like, I learned from other leaders. Like, I did little things like I went to HR, found everyone's birthdays, and also we automatically alert what their service anniversaries were. So things like
Yeah.
that, like, because I just cared, and I sent a little note. I had a guy who'd been at the company for 30 some years, and I sent
Wow.
him a nice little email on his birthday. He was to the moon with this thing, like, and a
Oh,
great guy, really
yeah.
smart, high performer. He's like, everyone comes to him. He said, Chris, like, he was like sentimental. He's like, no one has ever acknowledged this in my whole career. And then, like, I didn't like, there were things that, there was areas I wasn't strong at, but there were other things. So those types of things I was, and that gave me satisfaction. So yeah, creating that environment. So if people, this whole thing of people don't care what you know until they know that you care. So I think, by the way they acted, they knew that I cared about them, right? They may not
Yeah.
have known where the hell I was going, where I was driving this car. They knew that I cared about the passengers.
Yeah. Seatbelts were on and everything. It was a safe car. I mean,
Yeah.
guys, it doesn't take much to be a human to another human. Like, it just doesn't. And so it
Yeah.
makes such a difference and can make such an impact on someone's life. And then they feel valued,
Yes.
appreciated, respected. And like, that's how you keep people in an organization. So I think more managers that grasp that, like taking care of their people, the more effective they'll be as leaders, and the more respect, loyalty, and just like productivity that they'll have out of their team. So I want to
I can't agree
transition.
more.
Yeah, thank you. I want to transition to how companies may not necessarily be prepared for setting their new managers up for that transition into that space. Because it's not uncommon that in that transition, companies kind of forget that they need to provide some exposure to those
Mhm.
new managers to that next level of responsibility, so they can be discerning on, do they want this position or not? So, what do you recommend companies do to better support an individual contributor to a manager transition?
Yeah, that's a great question, Keisha. The My father-in-law, I mentioned, he one of the things he told me about that in education, right, which is there's leadership doesn't matter whether you're corporate or educate anywhere where you have teams, right, you have people. And a big thing that I love that he did that he told me about, connecting the dots here, was they had a new teacher training program, like a new teacher, and every new teacher, because teaching is tough, it's a lot to learn. So every new teacher had a kind of a mentor assigned to them when they started.
Mhm.
They have someone they can count on, kind of for questions, those kinds of things. So I think one of the biggest things that companies can do that I think would really help move the needle is to institute a new leader, like an assigned new leader mentor. So someone that you like, that is a formal role. They're there as their point person for helping them work through the stuff that no, that new leader is not to say they can't go out and get their own and for other mentors, right? Because I've heard a lot about kind of creating your own personal board of advisors. So have a team
Mhm.
of people that you can count on to help guide you along the way, that you trust, your trusted advisors. But I think having someone they know that they can count on, who that is a responsibility, right? It may take a little bit more time out of their schedule, and it's hard, but it's a way to give back to the company. It's a way to help them increase the success, decrease the odds that leaders will be successful and stay in their role. And it's gonna, it's planned. It's
Mhm.
part of their expectations for their performance and their job. So I think having a known a pairing of a new leader mentor that you can count on for, hey, how do you deal with this? Or I'm running into that, or I'm just stressed out, I need a vent. Like,
Yeah,
figure it out. Someone you can count on, I think that would really help people instead of leaving them to their own devices, kind of sink or swim. If they get
hmm
one, great. If they don't, because the leaders need the help, and they're a force multiplier. Like, their results, they're responsible for the results of so many. They impact so many people, and it's
yeah.
really a huge role. And when they leave, right, there's a huge hit to the organization too. So I think that would be my biggest recommendation.
Okay, and I also think mentors, the ones that are providing that support, they
Yeah.
benefit too, right? Because
Oh yeah.
a lot of times you can acquire knowledge, but it's not until you're practicing that you feel like you can actually learn it, and then it's not until you're able to teach it that you've really kind of mastered it. So when you are a mentor, you get to teach it, you get to share that knowledge with someone else, makes a big impact, and it also shows, I think, credibility for your next promotion if you are someone who is
Ooh,
put in
yes.
position to be a mentor, right? So if you're maybe your middle management, you're seeking the next level,
Hmm.
there's still opportunities. You can maybe volunteer or try to be a mentor for those up and coming leaders. I think that's a fabulous way to kind of build those skills and next level capabilities.
Completely agree. I've had many mentors over the years, and in formal programs and in just seeking them out, and I've served as a mentor to others as well. Every time I've done
Yeah,
it, I feel like I'm getting more out of it than they are, right?
cool.
And mentors have told me the same thing. Like, it's you both gain from it, right? It's more of like a partnership than like a hierarchy thing.
Absolutely. So now I would like to kind of ask you, what tips or best practices would you share with those who are seeking right now to transition from their individual contributor roles to a manager role?
Yeah, Keisha, I'd say the first thing is speak up. Like, if you're at the point where you want to do it, you want to go for it, and it's okay if you don't know if you're going to be good at it, because you're going to figure it out. Like, everyone struggles at, like, just like as we all just learn how to crawl and then walk, like, you'll figure it out. I would say just make your goals known. Speak up. Then that's what really helped me. I've
Sure.
realized anytime I speak up, people start coming out. They want to help you. People, like, we're all called to serve and help others. So if you
Yeah,
say, and there's a quote that goes, "A problem shared is a problem halved," as in cut in half,
cut
because
in
the
half.
person next to you is like, "Oh, how might I help with that?" So I think
Mm,
making your aspirations, your goals, and even if you don't know how to get there, it's okay. So, and even if you know what the time horizon is, that's okay too. But I think just saying, "I would like to become a leader," or "I'm, I'm considering," even if you're not sure, just say, "I'd like to explore this. I'd like to explore leadership." Tell your boss, tell people you trust, tell people who are your cheerleaders or in your corner, and they're going to find ways. They're going to find ways to help you. And you may ask, "Hey, is there anything anyone you suggest I reach out to, or things you suggest I do to help me, on this journey?" I think by doing that, that's probably the best advice, is just by making it known, people are going to start helping. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I'd suggest to do.
yeah, honestly, I'm advocate for yourself, right? Like, there's no shame in saying you want to be considered for this position, because if people don't know what your intentions are, what you're seeking, how you would like to grow, people aren't going to show up for you, and they're not going to be able to
No.
provide the support, the resources that you need. So make it known. I love, love, love that. Advocate for yourself. Speak it out. Chat with people. Share this
Yes.
desire, and like you said, the true nature of human beings is to come in and support, and you just never know where that will take you.
Yes. Yes. Because
Final
otherwise, your leadership, like, and I'm thinking of my role, right, as a manager.
Yeah,
If people aren't coming to me and telling me, and certainly I'm asking questions, "Hey, what do part of the process, how do you want to grow? What do you want to do?" I'm asking those questions too. But if they're not coming up forthright and saying, "I want to do this," like, my assumption is, okay, you're happy with, like, you like where you
mhm,
are, you like what you're doing. That's my, so, but if someone tells me I want to do this, then as a job, as a manager, I don't, as I didn't, I love when people told me they want to do something else, even if it's a different job. Like, I want to see people win. The best managers, they want to see their people get in the right role for them, right, to succeed. Like, they're not, you're not kind of like protecting and holding them to themselves and being
mhm.
greedy. So they want to see you win and grow and succeed and be happy.
Yeah, and even if the position isn't available, right? And they know,
Yes.
okay, it's not vacant, so why even say anything? Forget about that, right? Still advocate for yourself, because I think that good managers, effective managers and leaders are going to want to invest in you as an employee that is seeking to transition rather than see you get stagnant and
Hmm.
disengaged from the company. There's this quote, I can't remember who said it, but it's like the president asked the CFO, what if we invest in people and it costs us all this money? And then
Hmm.
the CFO or the president says back, well, what if we invest in people and um, they stay? We don't invest in people and they stay, right? So the worst part about not investing in our people is that we could potentially just have people who are not developing, not growing their skills and staying with the company. Wouldn't you rather invest in people and see them go off and take those skills somewhere else, or potentially refer other people to the company than to stay and not grow and not contribute to the success of the overall objectives for the company?
I love it. It's so true.
Yeah. Final question, Chris. What's the most recent paradigm shift you've experienced? It could be related to this right now or anything else.
Oh, I love this one. This is a great question. No, I love you ending with this one too. So I have, we're talking about leadership and I guess my personal act of leadership. I've recently made a huge decision after, a lot of time and talking to my advisors and praying on it. And so actually after 17 or so years working for big companies, working in corporate America, I decided to invest in myself as an entrepreneur. So I've been thinking about this for probably a decade, where I've really wanted to do something,
Wow.
branch on my own. So I've been making music for the last, I guess, couple months. I've released a couple songs. So if you look up my name, it's on here, CHRISGERE on all platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, you name it. Released 2 songs so far.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and more to come. So I'm investing in myself as an artist for making music, hip hop music. Kind of feel good music, not kind of feel good music, as a way to make people feel good, and as well as some other related business ventures. So my biggest paradigm shift has really been in one, living authentically. So really just,
Mm.
living, walking in your truth of who you are. And two, really just, investing in yourself. Really, if there's the best thing you can invest in is you, right? If you take
Yeah.
care of yourself, everything else is gonna work out. So it's a big thing, a big
Ooh.
change I've made, but I couldn't be more excited. So those are big mindset and behavior shifts for me.
I cannot be more excited for you. I am cheering you on and definitely am so excited to watch your journey. And thank you for sharing that shift, because I think there's a lot of people out there who maybe they're not going to want to take that leap and go off as an entrepreneur in music, but maybe they want to take a leap and invest in themselves, right? To go off and start their own business, or they want to take on that next role, or they just want to just be more authentic and live their more authentic self.
Yes.
This is such a great example of someone doing that in real time. So thank you for your courage. I'm sure you're going to inspire so many people.
I'm excited to do it. And I completely agree with you. Um, all these things matter. Like the jobs that I did, all were really important and mattered, and they were where I need to be at the time. So investing in yourself in whatever way, as you say, Casey, whatever way works for you. It doesn't mean you need to go out and leave your job or do. It could mean maybe I'm going to take a course, or I'm going to, pursue this passion as a hobby, or find ways to invest in the things that take care of you and living your truth, whatever that may be. Whether
Hmm.
it's as an accountant or a podcast host or as a artist or whatever, anything it may be in your life. So that's been a big. So yeah, thank you. So always a joy to talk with you.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. And they always say, like, don't pour from an empty cup. You don't even want to pour from a full cup. You want to be pouring from an overflowing cup. So I am so excited for you, Chris, in this journey. Thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to following you.
All right, thank you so much. Likewise.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to leave a review, rate, and subscribe wherever you're listening. If you know a business leader in practice or friend who you think would be interested in this episode, please consider sharing it with them. I am so grateful for your support. For more updates, you can follow us at Paradigm Shifts Podcast on Instagram. See you on the next episode.